I've been abducted by the same UFO 67 times. I finally know what they want from me. The first time it happened, I was 25. The second time, 26. The third time, 27. It happened a lot that year. It's never come as many times as it did that year, but it comes at least once every year. No matter my age, it's always the same. I always know when it's coming, like an aura before a seizure. The same fluctuations in electricity, the same low thrumming, the same overwhelming vibration, feeding first into my feet, then rippling through my entire body as I edge closer to the craft. And then there's those same piercing red lights. By the time the last light flashes on, there's 8 in total. I can't see much else on the body of the craft other than those 8 lights. The first time it happened, I remember thinking it was like 4 giant creatures watching me in the darkness of the night, stalking their prey, or one enormous one seeing me, well, unseen to me. By the time the last light blinks on, I know I'm about to black out. I know I'm about to black out because I always do. It's secondhand nature to me now, a new and eerie kind of muscle memory. I'm 48 years old now. I've been taken 67 times. If it sounds unbelievable to you, I guess I understand. It's difficult for people to believe when they haven't experienced it themselves, to comprehend reality beyond their own immediate experience. I've lost a lot of people to my unbelievable predicament over the years. Friends, family, significant others. I've lost a lot of joy as well. A lot of my life to this. I've lost a lot. But I've also learned a lot too. Mostly, not to talk to people about it. The only people I talk about these abductions anymore are the researchers, the ufologists. They're the only ones who believe me. The others either think it's a weird quirk and pretend to hear me out, or they try to 5150 me. I've been in so many involuntary psychiatric holds that they should have dedicated a damn wing in that hospital for me. I've certainly earned it. It was particularly bad that one year, when I was 27. There were a lot of revolving door psychiatric stays for me that year too. The doctor said that the year was significant. Like I wouldn't know that, because they'd expect to see an onset of schizophrenia around that time. If it was going to come, it'd come now, they clarified. Damn it. So, I am crazy after all. My thoughts, and I ended up taking the pills they were giving me. I took all the pills, all the antipsychotics, then the second blitz of meds piled on to deal with all the side effects that came from such small, unassuming capsules. The dry mouth, the constipation, and the fatigue. None of the extra meds helped with the worst part. The thing I complained about most fell not on deaf ears, but ears that simply couldn't care less. Ears that thought they were better, just because they hovered some inches above a crisp white lab coat. The worst part of this, the total loss of creativity, the absolute removal of anything that made life worth living. There were no moments of wonder anymore, just passive observation. I didn't walk through my life. I floated through it, dazed. It was like the entire world was waterlogged, and all of the color had run out of its pages. All of the color, except for the piercing red lights. It was a bad year for me. Things got better though. Marginally better, but still better. When I found the ufologist, it was a chance meeting, and one I felt lucky to have stumbled upon. There was a flyer stapled up at the coffee shop I used to frequent. I used to play my music there. at that point, I only came to listen. Just looking at my guitar made me feel guilty because I couldn't bring myself to love the way it felt in my hands anymore. Because I was grasping at straws just to find the emotion I once used it to express. Anyway, there was a flyer there that caught my eye. There was some sort of paranormal extraterrestrial speaker coming to town. I ripped an info tab off the bottom of the registered. It was a small affair. Not many believers out there, but as soon as the ufologist presented, I knew I needed to talk to them. For the first time in my life, someone believed me. The lead ufologist, Dr. Gray, invited me for a formal interview. I packed a suitcase and flew across the country to meet him and his team. They asked me about my experiences when it had started, what I could remember, For the first time in my life, someone asked probing questions out of genuine interest instead of trying to get me to analyze my false beliefs. For the very first time in my life, a whole group of people listened to me without interjecting, without insisting I must be crazy. For the first time in my life, I was told abductions were real. Dr. Gray advised me to go off my meds if they were bothering me so much. I never took another one of those little life wreckers again. Since then, I felt a lot more stable. The abductions haven't stopped, but they've slowed since that 1 year. When it does happen, I visit Dr. Gray, or he comes to me. His research team is fully invested in me. They want to find out why I've been abducted so many times. Over the years, he's tried to reassure me that the extraterrestrials, or whatever it is responsible for my abductions, likely mean no harm. I try to think the same because there have been times where it honestly feels like they've helped me. Times when I've been sick, so sick I should have been to the hospital but was too scared to go, and I'm almost miraculously cured after an abduction, or the UFO keeps coming until I'm better. Either way, they mean me no harm, or they're keeping me alive or something. I try to think they mean me no harm because I lived to tell the tale so many times. 67 times to be exact. The 67th abduction happened at the start of this year. I knew it was coming as soon as the lights flickered out. I don't even try to fight it anymore. I just walk outside, vibrations start rumbling throughout my body to find the first piercing red lights already on. Lights 2 through 7, right on schedule. The 8th light flashed on and, of course, I would black out. I called Dr. Gray as soon as I found my way back to consciousness in my aching body, laid limp on my bed. It was almost an entire 24 hours later. He scheduled a red-eye flight to see me. I barely slept that night. Dr. Gray noted how tired I looked when I let him in the next morning. He put on a pot of hot coffee in the kitchen as I eased my bones into a chair at the table. We sat there in a comfortable silence as he found the mugs in the cabinet, pulled the cream from the fridge. He's been here so many times. I didn't even have to tell him where to find my stuff, nor do I have to tell him I'm absolutely useless to interview until I've had a cup of coffee. 2, if you really want me to be on my best behavior. He placed the steaming mug in front of me, then his own cup at the other seat. He's the only one who ever really sits there anymore. If it weren't for Dr. Gray, I probably would have chunked it years ago. We sat quietly until I'd finished my first mug. Dr. Gray refilled it before he clicked on his tape recorder and began the questions.
This is Dr. Gray with Subject 11. It is January 4th, 2021, and it is currently 9 a.m.
I smirked. Always so official on tape, when our relationship had grown friendly over the years.
Tell me about the abduction.
I relayed much of what I've already told you here. The electricity, the vibration, the sounds, the lights, and of course the blackout. Sometimes I vaguely remember what happens once I'm actually aboard the craft, but it feels more like a dream than reality. It's less of an out-of-body experiences as much as it is a what even is my body experience. What I do remember feels so much like it's ripped straight out of Hollywood that it makes it unbelievable to skeptics. I'm lying down, my back on a cold metal surface. My vision is blurry, and I'm blinded by a bright overhead light. Even when I do wake up on the craft, I know to squint my eyes closed now. Even with my eyes closed, though, I feel the poking and prodding. My skin is pricked. There are needles. Things are drawn from or injected into my body, more likely drawn, because Dr. Gray has never found foreign substances in my body after he runs labs on me. He does, however, find prick marks in the physical examinations.
Did you wake up this time?
I tipped my mug to my lips, closing my eyes to take in the comforting aroma as I did my best to scan my memories. All I found in my brain was a nasty ache. No, I don't think so. Nodding, Dr. Gray scribbled some notes down on his legal pad. He's such a meticulous person, all record-keeping and probing questions.
Okay. What were you doing when the abduction began?
I racked my brain again, but my memory is often at least somewhat compromised each time. Not that I do much of anything anymore anyway. I think I was heating up a TV dinner and I just put a movie on and Dr. Gray cut me off.
Have you nausea this time?
I shook my head no.
Good.
I opened my mouth to continue, but Dr. Gray cut me off again.
Have you been experiencing any erectile dysfunction? EB.
Blinking, I stared through him, sure that my exhausted mind was playing tricks on me, right? Dr. Gray grinned, breathing a shy laugh.
I'm sorry, Dave. I don't mean to the crass. I've just been talking with some other subjects recently, and that appears to be a common experience for falling abductions. I figured I'd ask since you've had so many.
I busted out laughing. Well, damn. I hope not.
I hope not, too.
He replied, his broad smile splitting his face.
Please, continue.
There wasn't much to say. Other than the headache, I felt fine. Really, I was just tired. I disrobed for the physical exam, then Dr. Gray ran some tests on me. He released me with a clean bill of health. Generally, this is how it always goes. How it's always been for the past couple of decades. It was such a standard abduction and standard visit following that the whole thing fell right into place with the rest of them. It's eerie how comfortable the whole thing has become to me. But something happened last night that threw my entire understanding of the abductions into question. I was nestled in my spots on the couch, the spot that's gradually worn away around my body so that I sink right in. It's as unique to me as a fingerprint. I had my laptop perched on my knees, just aimlessly scrolling through the internet. I came across a news headline about a new medication that intrigued me. Not for any particular reason, I was just bored. I clicked on it, half reading it until I noticed an oddly familiar quote.
When asked if he'd experienced erectile dysfunction as a side effect of the medication. One participant exclaimed,
Well, damn. I hope not. I just sat there, half absorbed by my couch, staring at the screen. I tried to rationalize it away, thinking it must be a common thing for men to say when asked about the functional status of their dick. I found the author of the study, not Dr. Gray, thank God, and plugged his name and the title of the original study into my search engine. It came back behind a paywall. To my surprise, there were dozens of articles authored by this same guy in the same journal. I figured it was a worthwhile purchase, if only to give me something to do for a while. I had a couple $100 burning a hole in my pocket anyway, a gift from Dr. Gray for my time. We had a follow-up interview on the phone earlier this week anyways. The papers were difficult to read, with all their cold and clinical terminology, but I think I got the gist. This doctor and his research team had conducted more experimental drug studies than I even thought possible over the past several decades. At first, I was only intrigued by the subject matter. As I kept reading, however, I couldn't mask the growing fear, not even for myself. Each study, each drug, and each of their listed side effects, they all seemed so familiar. Even more familiar was the description of subjects in each study, especially in the smaller studies. There were even a few case studies where the sole subject matched me in every single descriptor. Even worse was the fact that this person was constantly referred to throughout paper after paper after paper as Subject 11. Subject 11 had been through a lot. He'd battled several diseases that, as far as I was aware, I never even had.
A 27-year-old Subject 11 presented with antibiotic-resistant syphilis, onset 2 years previous.
The year of my first abduction, it took years to resolve the infection.
A 47-year-old Subject 11 was one of the first test subjects for a new vaccine. Weeks later, he was exposed to the targeted fires.
The timeline checked out with my abductions last year. Subject 11 was poked and prodded and experimented on, while I was always released with a clean bill of health. I haven't slept yet. I stayed up all night reading my secret medical history. I went back to the original news article. It's been pulled. You'd think that, with how prolific this scientist is, he'd be much better known, famous even. Well, you think that, wouldn't you? Reading eventually turned to writing this all down. I need someone else to know what's happened to me. I've been silenced for so long. A silence learned from not being believed. I know what's happened to me now, and I won't hold my tongue any longer. There are other subjects out there. Please, if you are one of them, I'm begging you to contact me. I can't live like this any longer. I lost trust in the only person I've ever found it in. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, who I'm going to tell. All I know is this. The next time the lights flicker, the air starts to thrum, and the vibration buzzes throughout my body, I'll be ready. I'll be ready before the 8th.